Sometimes the greatest betrayals don't arrive with thunder. They wait in silence, quiet as a key turning in a lock. The key slid into the lock of her own front door. Emily Grant hadn't told anyone. She was coming home early from her business trip after 2 months, curating art collections across Asia. She had imagined Jason's surprise, maybe even tears, maybe the way he'd lift her in one of those spontaneous embraces he used to give her before she left. She wanted to surprise her husband, Jason, but as she pushed open the door, the real surprise was waiting for her. A blonde woman, heavily pregnant, humming softly as she cooked dinner in her kitchen, wearing her apron. Her apron. Before we continue the story, let us know where you're watching from. After 2 exhausting months in Asia, Emily had managed to wrap up her exhibition tour 3 weeks early. The 16-hour flight from Tokyo to San Diego had left her drained, her muscles aching, eyes gritty with exhaustion. But the thought of seeing her husband Jason's face when she walked through the door kept her going through the jet lag. He had always said the house felt empty without her. Their marriage had weathered its share of challenges. Over the past 8 years, Jason, an investment manager at Pacific Meridian Bank, had always supported Emily's career, even when it took her away for weeks at a time. They built what Emily believed was a solid partnership, childless by mutual choice, focused on their careers, with a beautiful home in the suburbs of San Diego that they'd spent years perfecting. She could still picture them testing paint swatches late into the night, arguing gently over throw pillows, clinking wine glasses every time a new project was complete. As Emily's taxi pulled into the tree-lined street of her neighborhood, she felt that familiar sense of relief. Home, finally. But as the car approached her house, something felt off. "That's strange," Emily murmured, noticing a sleek black Mercedes she didn't recognize parked in her usual spot in the driveway. Maybe Jason bought a new car, she wondered, but immediately dismissed the thought. Jason would have mentioned such a major purchase in their daily calls. As the taxi driver helped her with her luggage, Emily noted more discrepancies. The front garden had been completely redesigned. The carefully selected hypoallergenic plants she'd insisted on due to her severe allergies had been replaced with vibrant hydrangeas, beautiful, but exactly the flowers her immunologist had warned her to avoid. The lawn, once minimalist and sculpted with desert grasses, now looked like a florist's showroom, loud, chaotic, and utterly foreign. The exterior lighting had changed too. The warm golden sconces that had taken them months to source from an artisan in Oregon had been replaced with harsh modern blue LED fixtures that gave the Spanish-style home an oddly clinical appearance. Maybe he's planning a surprise renovation, Emily thought, though the knot in her stomach suggested otherwise. Something cold and ancient twisted low in her gut. The kind of feeling you get not when something is wrong, but when you already know it is. Emily paid the driver and wheeled her suitcase to the front door. That's when she heard it. Unfamiliar music drifting through the windows. Not Jason's preferred jazz or her classical compilations, but pulsing electronic dance music. It seemed entirely out of character for their household. Using her key, Emily entered quietly. The entryway hit her with another shock. The carefully curated gallery wall featuring photographs from their travels had been replaced with large, abstract prints in aggressive neon colors, precisely the style of art she had professionally critiqued as soulless, commercial work in her last published review. "Jason?" she called out, hearing her voice crack slightly. No answer came over the pulsing music. Emily moved deeper into the house, wheeling her suitcase behind her. Each room she passed showed evidence of transformation. Their neutral-toned living room now featured a vibrant purple sectional sofa, replacing their beloved vintage leather couch. The bookshelves had been cleared of Jason's history books and her art volumes, now displaying decorative objects and few actual books. As Emily approached the kitchen, the smell of unfamiliar spices grew stronger. She pushed open the swinging door and froze. Standing at her professional-grade range, a housewarming gift from her parents, was a woman Emily had never seen before. Tall and slender, except for a prominent baby bump. The woman had platinum blonde hair pulled into a messy but stylish bun. She wore Emily's vintage linen apron, the one Emily's grandmother had given her, stretched awkwardly over her pregnant belly. For what seemed like an eternity, Emily stood silent, trying to process the scene. The woman hadn't noticed her yet, humming along to the music as she stirred something in Emily's copper cookware. Then, as if sensing a presence, the woman turned. Emily expected shock, embarrassment, perhaps even panic at being discovered. Instead, the blonde woman's perfectly made-up face registered only mild surprise before settling into a practiced smile. "You must be Emily," the woman said calmly, placing the wooden spoon on the spoon rest. "Jason said you wouldn't be back for another 3 weeks." Emily felt as if the floor had disappeared beneath her feet. The casual tone, the knowledge of her schedule, the comfortable way this stranger occupied her space, it all suggested something far beyond a brief indiscretion. "Who are you?" Emily managed to ask, her voice barely audible over the music still pulsing through the house's speaker system. "And what are you doing in my home?" The woman reached for the tablet on the counter and turned down the music with a manicured finger. The sudden relative quiet felt even more unsettling. "I'm Vanessa," the woman replied, resting one hand on her baby bump in what seemed like a deliberately protective gesture. "Vanessa Porter? Jason didn't mention I'd be here, did he?" A small, knowing smile played across her lips. That's so typical of him, always putting things off until the last minute. Emily's mind raced through possibilities, each worse than the last. A relative needing somewhere to stay? No. Jason was an only child, and his parents had retired to Arizona years ago. A friend in trouble? But why would she speak with such familiarity? "I don't understand," Emily said, fighting to keep her voice steady. "Where is Jason? Why are you in our house? What's happening here?" Vanessa tilted her head slightly, her expression shifting to one of practiced sympathy that never quite reached her eyes. "Oh dear," she said. "This is going to be more awkward than I thought." Vanessa turned back to the stove, stirring whatever was in the pot with an air of complete ownership that made Emily's blood boil. The woman was acting as if Emily were the intruder in her own home. "Jason will be home in about an hour," Vanessa continued, her tone conversational, as if discussing the weather. "He's at our parenting class. Tuesday nights, you know?" Emily's legs felt weak. She pulled out one of the kitchen chairs, new, like so much else in the house, and sat down heavily, still in her travel clothes. "I think you need to explain exactly what's going on," Emily demanded, finding strength in her rising anger now. Vanessa sighed, turning down the heat on the stove before facing Emily. Her hand returned to her baby bump, in what Emily was beginning to recognize as a calculated gesture. "This is awkward timing," Vanessa said, leaning against the counter. "Jason and I were planning to call you next week. He's been meaning to tell you for months, but with the baby coming in just 8 weeks, we couldn't wait any longer." She glanced around the kitchen with a proprietary air. "I'm afraid you've interrupted our nesting phase." The casual cruelty of the statement hit Emily like a physical blow. Nesting phase, as if this woman and Jason were a pair of birds building a home together in the house Emily had helped design and pay for. "How long?" Emily asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "How long what?" Vanessa replied breezily. "How long have Jason and I been together? Or how long have I been living here?" she asked with practiced innocence. "We've been seeing each other for almost 18 months. I moved in," she paused, as if counting, "about 6 weeks ago, right after you left for Asia." 18 months. 6 weeks. The numbers pounded in Emily's head. Jason and Emily had celebrated their 8th anniversary just 4 months ago with a weekend trip to Sonoma. They had clinked glasses at a vineyard, laughed over shared memories, and held hands as if nothing could shake them. Had he already been involved with this woman then? Had he been living a double life all this time? "I don't believe you," Emily said, though her voice caught in her throat, her chest already tightening with dread. The changes to the house, the comfortable way Vanessa navigated the space, it all suggested her story was true. Vanessa shrugged, returning to her cooking. "Believe what you want. Jason will confirm everything when he gets home." She opened Emily's spice cabinet, now reorganized with labels facing outward in precise alphabetical order, and selected a jar. "He's been unhappy for years, Emily. All these business trips you take while I've been here, giving him what he really wants. A family. We're expecting a son." She let the word son hang in the air like a blade. Emily and Jason had discussed children early in their marriage and mutually decided to focus on their careers, or at least Emily had believed it was mutual. Now she wondered what else had been quietly rewritten behind her back. "I want you out of my house," Emily said, standing up now, "before Jason gets back." Vanessa laughed, a light tinkling sound that grated on Emily's already frayed nerves. "That's not how this works," she replied. "This is Jason's house too, and he wants me here." She stirred the pot again. "Besides, I've been managing things while you've been gone. Bills, maintenance, everything. Ask Jason if you don't believe me." Emily's mind raced. She needed to see more, to understand just how far this nightmare reached. "I'm going to freshen up," she said stiffly, needing a moment alone to think. "Sure," Vanessa replied, waving a hand dismissively. "Your things have been moved to the guest room. We've been using the master bedroom." "Of course." The casual statement sent another wave of nausea through Emily. She left her suitcase in the kitchen and moved through the house, taking inventory of the changes. The home office, where she'd written catalog essays and organized exhibitions, had been transformed into a nursery. Pale blue walls, an elaborate crib, and a mural of woodland animals had replaced her desk, files, and art books. The room smelled faintly of fresh paint and betrayal. A framed ultrasound image hung prominently on the wall, with Baby Grant written beneath it in flowing script. In the hallway, Emily noticed something else missing: the photographs. Every framed picture of her and Jason had vanished. In their place were photos of Jason with Vanessa, the two of them hiking, at a baseball game, at what appeared to be a baby shower with people Emily didn't recognize. The master bedroom was the final blow. The sanctuary she had created with Jason was completely transformed. Their platform bed had been replaced with a traditional sleigh bed. The neutral palette Emily had carefully chosen was now a bold navy and white scheme. Vanessa's clothes filled the closet Emily had left half empty. On Jason's nightstand sat pregnancy books and a sonogram photo in a frame that read "Daddy's Little MVP." Emily's legs gave out, and she sank onto the edge of the bed. Their bed that was no longer theirs. She pulled out her phone instinctively, wanting to call Jason and demand answers. But as she scrolled to his contact, she realized with growing dread that his last text was from 3 days ago, containing nothing but bland reassurances about his week and questions about her exhibition. Emily dialed his number. After 3 rings, an automated voice informed her that the number was no longer in service. Returning to the kitchen in a daze, Emily held up her phone. "Jason's number isn't working." Vanessa looked up from setting the dining table, with new dinnerware Emily had never seen before. "Oh, he changed his number last month," she said casually. "Too many work calls during off hours. Here, use mine." She held out her phone, open to contacts, where Jason was prominently displayed. Emily didn't take the offered phone. Instead, she noticed that Vanessa had set the table for 2, not 3. "I assume I'm not welcome for dinner," Emily said, her voice hollow. "Well, this is rather unexpected," Vanessa replied. "We hadn't planned on you being here. Jason will want to talk to you privately when he gets home, I'm sure. Perhaps you could go out and get something to eat. Give us some space to figure out how to handle this situation." The audacity, being asked to leave her own home to give her husband and his pregnant girlfriend space, was almost laughable. Almost. "I'm not going anywhere," Emily said firmly. "This is my house." Vanessa's pleasant facade cracked slightly, revealing a flash of annoyance before she composed herself again. "Actually, it's both of yours, isn't it? Which means Jason has every right to invite me to live here." She placed a hand on her belly again. "For the baby's sake." The doorbell rang, startling them both. "That's probably the delivery," Vanessa said, moving toward the front door. "We ordered a rocking chair for the nursery." As Vanessa disappeared into the hallway, Emily quickly went through the drawers in the kitchen island. Her organizing system had been completely rearranged, but in the 3rd drawer she found what she was looking for: the file of house documents. She rifled through it quickly, confirming that at least their mortgage paperwork seemed unchanged. From the entryway, she could hear Vanessa signing for the delivery, her voice cheerful and completely at ease. This woman had thoroughly embedded herself in Emily's life, with apparently no reservations or guilt. Emily's phone vibrated with an incoming text. It was from Kelsey, her best friend since college, who also happened to work at Pacific Meridian Bank, alongside Jason. "Hey, you back early? Tried your house phone, but no answer. Need to talk to you ASAP about Jason. Something weird with the Camden account. Call me." Before Emily could respond, she heard a car pull into the driveway. Through the kitchen window, she saw Jason's silver Audi parking beside the black Mercedes. Her husband was home. Emily felt a strange calm settle over her. After the initial shock and pain, she now wanted answers. She squared her shoulders and waited. The front door opened, and Emily heard the familiar sound of Jason's keys dropping into the ceramic bowl in the entryway, a bowl that had been replaced with something new. She noted it absently. "Babe, that rocker got delivered," Jason called out. "But they sent the wrong color. I told them we need the—" Jason's voice trailed off as he rounded the corner into the kitchen and saw Emily standing there. For a brief moment, genuine shock registered on his face. His mouth opened and closed without sound, and the color drained from his features. Then, as if a mask had slipped into place, his expression changed to one of practiced concern. "Emily," he said, his voice carefully modulated, "you're back. Early." Jason Grant had always been handsome in a conventional way. Athletic build maintained through regular tennis matches, sandy brown hair cut in an expensive but conservative style, blue eyes that crinkled when he smiled. At 42, he looked younger than his age, especially in the casual polo shirt and khakis he wore now. But as Emily studied the man she'd been married to for 8 years, she realized she was seeing him clearly for perhaps the first time. The way his eyes darted between her and Vanessa, the slight tension in his jaw, the calculated distance he maintained, standing closer to Vanessa than to his wife. "Obviously," Emily replied coolly. "I've met Vanessa," Emily said. Jason nodded slowly, moving to stand beside the pregnant woman. His hand automatically went to the small of Vanessa's back, an intimate gesture that told Emily everything about their relationship. That one touch, casual and proprietary, cut deeper than any confession could have. "I was going to tell you when you got back," Jason said, his tone rehearsed. "This isn't how I wanted you to find out." "Find out what exactly?" Emily asked. "That you moved your pregnant girlfriend into our home while I was away? That you've redecorated the entire house? That you've changed your phone number? Which betrayal were you planning to start with, Jason?" Jason exchanged a look with Vanessa before answering. "All of it, Emily. I know this is a shock, but Vanessa and I, it just happened. We're in love." Emily blinked. The words landed like a slap, not because they hurt, but because they were so lazy, so insultingly predictable. The cliché was almost worse than the betrayal. It just happened, as if an 18-month affair resulting in pregnancy was some sort of natural disaster that couldn't have been prevented. "When did you plan to tell me?" Emily pressed. "Vanessa says you've been seeing each other for a year and a half. That's half the time I was working on the Asian exhibition, which, by the way, you encouraged me to take." A flash of something, guilt, annoyance, crossed Jason's face. "I was trying to find the right time." "The right time," Emily repeated flatly. "And that would have been when exactly? After the baby was born? On your first anniversary?" She didn't raise her voice, but the venom in her tone made Vanessa shift uncomfortably. Jason's jaw tightened. "This isn't productive, Emily. What's done is done. We need to talk about next steps." "Next steps?" Emily echoed, feeling like a parrot repeating phrases that made no sense. "Yes," Jason said, moving to the dining room table where his briefcase sat. He opened it and removed a folder. "I've had papers drawn up, a divorce settlement. It's fair to everyone involved." Emily stared at him in disbelief. "You've already prepared divorce papers?" Her pulse thundered in her ears. This wasn't just betrayal. It was premeditated disposal. "It's better this way," Jason insisted, laying the documents on the table. "Clean break. You get to keep focusing on your career, and Vanessa and I can focus on our family." The casual cruelty of his words hit Emily anew. 8 years of marriage dismissed so easily, like deleting a file, like closing a browser tab. "I need you to sign these tonight," Jason continued, his tone becoming more businesslike. "My attorney advised that we resolve this quickly, for everyone's benefit." "Tonight?" Emily asked incredulously. "You expect me to sign divorce papers without even reading them? Without my own attorney?" Jason's expression hardened slightly. "It's a generous settlement, Emily. You get to keep your art collection, your personal investments. I'm not trying to take advantage of you. Emily approached the table and glanced at the papers without touching them. Even from a cursory look, she could see it was far more than just divorce papers. There were documents related to their joint accounts, the house, and something about the Camden Family Foundation. "Why are there documents about my family's foundation in here?" Emily asked, suspicion growing. "Just formalizing the separation of our financial interests," Jason said smoothly. "You know, I've been helping manage some of the Camden investments. This just clarifies that I'll no longer have any involvement." Something didn't add up. Jason had indeed helped with some investment advice for her family's foundation, but he'd never had signing authority or direct access to those accounts. Emily's phone vibrated again. Another text from Kelsey. "Don't sign anything. Something's wrong with the Camden account. Call me ASAP." Emily glanced up to see both Jason and Vanessa watching her intently. "I need time to review these," Emily said, buying time. "And I need to speak with my own attorney." "There's no time for that," Jason insisted, his voice taking on an edge she'd rarely heard. "I need you to sign these papers and move out as soon as possible, for the baby's sake." There it was again. For the baby's sake, as if an unborn child somehow entitled them to her home and a rushed legal process. "Move out," Emily repeated. "This is my house too, Jason. My name is on the mortgage. Where exactly do you expect me to go tonight?" "You can stay at a hotel for a few days," Vanessa interjected, "just until you find a more permanent arrangement. We've already packed some of your essential items." She gestured toward a suitcase Emily hadn't noticed before, sitting by the kitchen door. "The rest of your things are in storage." "You packed my things?" Emily felt her composure slipping. "You put my possessions in storage, without my permission?" "We needed the space," Jason said unapologetically, "for the nursery and Vanessa's things." "This is insane," Emily said, shaking her head. "You can't just erase me from my own life and expect me to cooperate." "Be reasonable, Emily," Jason said, his tone patronizing. "This situation is difficult for everyone." "The sooner we resolve it, the better," Jason said. As he spoke, Emily noticed Vanessa moving toward the kitchen island where her purse sat. The blonde woman casually removed something that looked like prescription medication and swallowed a pill with water. "What's that?" Emily asked, momentarily distracted. "Prenatal vitamins," Vanessa answered smoothly. "Doctor's orders." Jason placed a pen on top of the papers. "Emily, please, just sign the documents. Then you can go, and we can all start moving forward." "I'm not signing anything tonight," Emily said firmly. "And I'm not leaving my house." Jason's expression darkened. "You're making this more difficult than it needs to be." "Am I?" Emily countered. "You've been having an affair for over a year, moved another woman into our home, changed the locks on my office, disposed of my belongings, and prepared legal documents I've never seen before. But I'm the one making things difficult?" "You were never here," Jason snapped, his composure finally cracking. "Always at some gallery or exhibition or auction? What did you expect?" "I expected fidelity," Emily replied coldly. "It's generally considered a basic component of marriage." Jason laughed bitterly. "Marriage requires presence, Emily. You chose your career over our relationship years ago." "That's not fair," Emily protested. "We agreed on our priorities together. You encouraged my career." "Things change," Jason said, glancing at Vanessa. "People change. I want a family, Emily, something you were never interested in before." Before Emily could respond, her phone rang. "Kelsey." Again. Emily knew she needed to take the call. "I need to use the bathroom," she said abruptly. "The powder room is being renovated," Vanessa said quickly. "Use the guest bath upstairs." Emily nodded and headed for the stairs, feeling Jason's and Vanessa's eyes on her back. Once inside the guest bathroom, also redecorated in a style she didn't recognize, Emily locked the door and answered the call. "Kelsey, what's going on?" she whispered. "Emily, thank God." Kelsey's voice came through, tense with worry. "Where are you? Are you at home?" "Yes, and you won't believe what I found," Emily began. "Listen to me," Kelsey cut her off. "Don't sign anything Jason gives you." "You don't agree to anything," Kelsey said. "There's something seriously wrong." "What do you mean?" Emily asked, her suspicions solidifying into something heavier than fear, crystallizing into dread. "Jason's been making unauthorized transactions from the Camden Foundation accounts," Kelsey explained rapidly. He somehow got access to the signature cards. He's been systematically siphoning money, quietly, surgically, offshore for months. Emily felt the room spin around her. How much? At least $32 million that we can trace so far, Kelsey said grimly. And Emily, that's not all. That woman he's with, she's not who she claims to be. Not even close. Emily sat down on the edge of the bathtub, her legs suddenly unable to support her weight. The tile was cool beneath her, but her skin burned with realization. What do you mean she's not who she claims to be? Emily whispered, keeping her voice low despite the running water she'd turned on for privacy. Her name isn't Vanessa Porter, Kelsey explained urgently. It's Elizabeth Kaplan. She's a known financial fraudster. She's been investigated for similar schemes in Boston, Miami, and Seattle. She targets wealthy individuals, Kelsey continued, especially those with access to family money or investment accounts. Emily's mind raced, memories snapping into place like puzzle pieces she'd never wanted to solve. Jason's insistence on her taking the Asian assignment, the sudden pregnancy announcement, the urgency to sign papers tonight. The pregnancy, Emily breathed. Is it even real? Based on her previous MO? Probably not, Kelsey replied. In Seattle, she wore a prosthetic pregnancy belly to gain sympathy from her Mark's family. She created an entire narrative. Twins, nursery plans, emotional manipulation. Emily recalled the way Vanessa kept protectively touching her belly. How she'd conveniently taken prenatal vitamins right in front of her. How do you know all this? Emily asked. After I noticed the suspicious transfers from the Camden accounts, I flagged it for compliance, Kelsey explained. They've been building a case for weeks. I wasn't supposed to tell you. They're worried about tipping them off. But when you texted that you were home early, I knew you were walking into something dangerous. Dangerous? Emily felt a chill crawl over her skin. I don't know, Kelsey admitted. But in the Seattle case, when the victim refused to cooperate, valuable artwork and jewelry mysteriously vanished from their home. In Miami, the victim's identity was stolen after signing what they thought were innocent documents. They're trying to get me to sign papers tonight, Emily said, the full scope of the situation becoming clear. Not just divorce papers. Documents about the Camden Foundation. Emily, don't sign anything, Kelsey emphasized. The FBI has been notified. They're already involved. The FBI? Emily repeated, stunned. Yes, the Foundation's accounts cross state lines, so it's federal jurisdiction, Kelsey explained. Emily, I need you to stay calm and stall them. Can you do that? Just find excuses not to sign or leave until help arrives. How long? Emily asked, checking her watch. It was just past 7 p.m. I don't know exactly, but soon, Kelsey promised. They were already monitoring the situation. Knowing you're there will accelerate their timeline. Emily took a deep breath, steadying herself. Okay, I'll stall. Be careful, Kelsey warned. Jason's been moving money for months. They're not amateurs. After ending the call, Emily stared at her reflection in the mirror. The woman looking back at her seemed like a stranger, travel-worn, shocked, betrayed. But underneath the hurt, Emily felt something else emerging, determination. This wasn't just about Jason's infidelity anymore. This was fraud, theft, and they were trying to use her to exploit her access to her family's charitable foundation, money dedicated to arts and education for underprivileged children. Emily splashed cold water on her face, ran her fingers through her hair, and steeled herself for what was to come. She had to keep them talking, keep them believing she might eventually cooperate, until help arrived. Downstairs, she found Jason and Vanessa in what appeared to be a hushed, tense conversation that stopped abruptly when she entered the room. Everything okay? Jason asked, his voice overly casual. As well as can be expected, Emily replied, moving toward the dining table where the papers still lay. I've been thinking about what you said. Jason and Vanessa exchanged a quick glance that Emily now recognized as calculating rather than intimate. And Jason prompted, I need to understand what I'm signing. Emily said, pulling out a chair and sitting down. Walk me through these documents. Relief flashed across Jason's face. Of course. That's reasonable. He sat down across from her, pulling the stack of papers closer. As I mentioned, it's a straightforward divorce settlement. Emily nodded, watching as he flipped to the first page. For the next 20 minutes, Jason explained the documents, or rather, the version of the documents he wanted her to believe existed. Jason spoke of equitable distribution of assets, her retention of personal property, his assumption of the mortgage. What he didn't explain, and what Emily could clearly see, were clauses transferring signing authority on accounts, powers of attorney for financial decisions, and authorizations related to the Camden Foundation's investment portfolio. In this section, Emily asked, pointing to a paragraph buried in the middle of page 17, about the transfer of management responsibilities for existing philanthropic endeavors. Jason barely glanced at it. Just formalizing that I'll no longer be advising on the Camden Foundation investments. You'll retain full control. A lie. The clause actually authorized Jason to act as an agent on behalf of the foundation for a period of 3 years. I see, Emily said, turning to the next page. And what about our art collection? I don't see it mentioned specifically. It's covered under personal property, Jason assured her. You keep your pieces. I keep mine. Fair division. Another lie. A separate document in the stack, which he hadn't shown her yet, included an inventory of art assets and their transfer to a newly formed LLC, one that Emily suspected she would have no actual control over. As Emily continued to ask questions, drawing out the process, she noticed Vanessa growing increasingly anxious. The blonde woman checked her watch repeatedly and kept glancing at her phone. Is there somewhere you need to be? Emily asked innocently. No, Vanessa said quickly. Just checking the time. It's getting late. Jason shot Vanessa a warning look before turning back to Emily with a forced smile. We have plenty of time to go through this properly. I want you to feel comfortable with everything. Emily nodded, pretending to read another page carefully. This mentions an offshore account in the Cayman Islands. We don't have any offshore accounts, Jason. A flash of annoyance crossed his face. That's just standard legal language. It's covering all bases for asset disclosure. Standard legal language for accounts he'd already established to funnel money from her family's foundation. I see, Emily murmured, turning another page with deliberate slowness. And these investment accounts listed here. I don't recognize some of these numbers. Those are the Camden Foundation accounts, Jason explained smoothly. They're included for reference only, to show they remain separate from our personal assets. Included for reference, with signature lines authorizing their control. Emily checked her watch. Almost an hour had passed since she'd spoken to Kelsey. Each minute since felt like walking a tightrope over a pit of sharks. How much longer would she need to stall? I think I need something to drink before we continue, Emily said, standing up. This is a lot to process. I'll get you some water, Vanessa offered quickly, starting to rise. Actually, I'd prefer wine, Emily replied. There should still be some bolo in the cellar, unless you've replaced that too, along with everything else. Jason and Vanessa exchanged another look. I'm afraid we don't keep alcohol in the house anymore, Jason said. Because of the baby, of course. The non-existent baby, the carefully woven lie that held their entire scheme together. Water is fine then, Emily conceded, watching as Vanessa moved to the refrigerator. As Vanessa reached up to retrieve a glass from a cabinet, Emily noticed something odd. The fabric over her stomach shifted too easily. The curve of her belly moved. Not the slow, natural sway of a baby, but a slip, a slide. The woman's pregnant belly shifted slightly to the side in a way no real pregnancy ever would. It was subtle, but unmistakable to Emily's now suspicious eyes. Kelsey had been right. Dead right. The whole act, the soft humming, the apron, the tender belly rubs, it was all performance. Vanessa handed Emily the water, and their eyes met. For a moment, Emily thought she detected a flicker of concern in the other woman's gaze, as if sensing Emily's growing awareness. Thank you, Emily said, her voice calm, her eyes razor-sharp as she took a deliberate sip. So, Jason, you mentioned I would need to move out tonight. Where exactly are my things? You said storage, but which facility? Safekeep on Riverside Drive, Jason answered. Everything's in a climate-controlled unit. I have the access information in my office. Emily nodded, wondering if her belongings were actually there, or if that was yet another lie. And my family photos? The albums from my parents? My grandmother's jewelry? She asked. Her tone cool, measured, surgical, knowing these items would be particularly valuable and easy to sell. All safely stored, Jason assured her, though his eyes didn't quite meet hers. We were very careful with your personal items. Emily set down her water glass with a deliberate click. You know what I find interesting, Jason? You keep saying we packed your things, we needed the space, we were careful, as if Vanessa has equal say in what happens to my possessions, in my home. Jason's jaw tightened. Vanessa is going to be my wife, Emily. She's carrying my child. Of course I include her in decisions. Your wife? Emily repeated. You haven't even filed for divorce yet. But she's already your wife, in all the ways that matter. In every way that counts, Jason replied coldly. Emily turned to Vanessa, who had been watching their exchange with calculated attentiveness. How far along did you say you were? 8 months. 32 weeks, Vanessa confirmed, one hand automatically moving to her belly. That's interesting, Emily said casually. Because 8 months ago, Jason and I were in Sonoma celebrating our anniversary. He didn't mention he had a pregnant girlfriend then. Vanessa's expression didn't waver. I wasn't pregnant then. We've only known about the baby for 5 months. I see, Emily nodded, as if accepting the explanation. So you got pregnant after knowing each other for what, a year? That's fast. When you know, Vanessa replied with practiced serenity. Enough about the timeline, Jason interrupted, clearly uncomfortable with the direction things were heading. Let's get back to the documents. If we can finish tonight, you can take the signed copies with you. Take them where exactly? Emily asked. You still haven't told me where I'm supposed to go. She checked her watch. Nearly 9 at night. The Four Seasons has availability, Jason said. I checked this afternoon. They can accommodate you for as long as needed. How thoughtful, Emily said dryly. You checked hotel availability before I even knew I needed a hotel. Jason's patience was visibly wearing thin. Emily, please just sign the papers. You can have your attorney review everything afterward if you're concerned. But I need these signatures tonight. Why the rush? Emily pressed. If this is all above board and fair, as you claim, why does it have to happen right now? Jason glanced at Vanessa before answering. My attorney advised completing this as quickly as possible, for clean closure. Your attorney advised getting signatures without independent legal review? Emily asked skeptically. That seems unlikely for any reputable lawyer. Jason's expression hardened. You're being difficult on purpose. No, I'm being cautious, Emily corrected, which seems reasonable when my husband of 8 years ambushes me with divorce papers and a pregnant girlfriend in one evening. Vanessa stepped forward, her voice taking on a harder edge than before. Jason, this isn't working. She's not going to sign tonight. She will, Jason insisted, turning back to Emily. Look, I've been more than patient. I've explained everything. I've offered a generous settlement. I've arranged accommodation for you. What more do you want? Time, Emily said simply. Time to process, time to review, time to consult my own attorney. We don't have time, Jason snapped, the mask slipping further. These need to be executed tonight. Why? Emily challenged. What happens at midnight? Do you two turn into pumpkins? Vanessa's hand closed around Jason's arm in warning. Jason, enough. We can revisit this tomorrow. But Jason shook her off, leaning across the table toward Emily. Sign the papers, Emily. Now, or things will become much less pleasant. Emily felt a chill at his tone, but maintained her composure. Are you threatening me, Jason? I'm stating facts, he replied coldly. You can make this easy or difficult, your choice. As tension filled the room, Emily noticed Vanessa checking her phone again, typing something quickly before putting it away. The woman's nervousness was becoming more apparent by the minute. Just then, Emily's own phone vibrated with an incoming text. She glanced down and saw Kelsey's name and a simple message. ETA, 15 minutes. 15 minutes. She just needed to stall a little longer. Let me think about this, Emily said, picking up the stack of papers and leafing through them as if reconsidering. If I sign tonight, what exactly happens next? Jason seemed to relax slightly, believing she was finally cooperating. You'll take these copies with you to the Four Seasons. Tomorrow, the transfers will be processed through our respective attorneys. By the end of the week, everything will be officially separated. And the house? Emily asked. When would I need to formally move out? Technically, you'd have 30 days, Jason replied. But given the circumstances, sooner would be better for everyone. Emily nodded thoughtfully. And my personal items at this storage facility, I'd have immediate access? Of course, Jason assured her. I'll text you the unit number and access code tomorrow. Not tonight. Another red flag. What about my car? Emily continued. It's still in long-term parking at O'Hare. I can have someone pick it up for you, Jason offered, growing more eager as he sensed her wavering. Just give me the parking details. That's very thoughtful, Emily said, forcing a small smile. And the Camden Foundation, how would the management transition work there? Jason hesitated, almost imperceptibly. There's no transition needed. As I said, those accounts remain entirely under your control. Another lie. The documents clearly indicated otherwise. I see, Emily murmured, turning another page. Meanwhile, Vanessa had moved to the kitchen window, peering out at the street with poorly concealed anxiety. She checked her watch again, before catching Emily watching her. Just wondering if the rain's going to hold off, Vanessa explained unconvincingly. The forecast mentioned storms tonight. Her voice was light, but her eyes flickered, nervous, calculating. The sky had been clear when Emily arrived, and she'd heard nothing about rain, but she nodded, as if accepting the explanation. Jason, Emily said, returning her attention to her husband. If I were to sign these tonight, I'd want to make one small change. This clause about the Camden Foundation investments, I'd prefer to remove it entirely, since you say it's not relevant anyway. Jason's expression tightened. The documents are a package, Emily. My attorney prepared them to be comprehensive. Removing sections could invalidate the whole agreement. I don't see how removing an irrelevant clause would invalidate anything, Emily pressed. If it's just standard language as you claimed. Let's not complicate things, Jason insisted. The papers are ready as they stand. Emily watched him carefully now, his lips thin, his fingers drumming nervously on the folder. The pressure was starting to crack through. Emily set down the documents and leaned back in her chair. I think I need more time to consider all this. It's a lot to process in one evening. Jason's mask of patience finally slipped completely. Damn it, Emily. Just sign the papers. His voice thundered through the room, raw and unfiltered. The temperature seemed to drop instantly. The outburst hung in the air between them. Vanessa hurried back from the window, placing a warning hand on Jason's shoulder. Jason, she murmured. Calm down. But Jason shrugged her off, standing abruptly. We don't have time for this. I've been patient. I've explained everything. I've been more than generous. Generous? Emily repeated, incredulously. You've been stealing from my family's foundation, Jason. That's not generosity. It's theft, a federal crime. The statement landed like a bomb in the room. Jason froze, and Vanessa's carefully maintained composure cracked completely. What did you say? Jason asked, his voice deadly quiet. You heard me, Emily replied, standing to face him. Her tone was steady, almost serene, and that made it even more dangerous. I know about the unauthorized transfers. I know about the offshore accounts. Did you really think no one would notice $32 million disappearing? Jason and Vanessa exchanged panicked looks. You don't know what you're talking about, Jason tried, but his voice lacked conviction. Don't I? Emily challenged. Pacific Meridian Bank has flagged the transactions, Jason. The reports have already been filed. She's bluffing, Vanessa said quickly. She just got back. She can't know anything. Emily turned to the blonde woman. I know enough, Elizabeth. Or do you prefer Vanessa these days? The color drained from Vanessa's face. What did you call me? Elizabeth Kaplan, Emily said clearly. That is your real name, isn't it? Not Vanessa Porter. For a moment, no one moved. Then Jason recovered, forcing a laugh that sounded hollow even to his own ears. This is ridiculous, Emily. You're making wild accusations because you're upset about our relationship? Am I? Emily countered. Then explain why Pacific Meridian Bank's compliance division has been building a case for weeks. Explain why the FBI is involved. FBI? Vanessa repeated, her voice barely above a whisper. You're lying, Jason insisted, but he'd begun to sweat, his collar suddenly seeming too tight. Check your phone, Jason, Emily suggested. I'm sure your contact at the bank has been trying to reach you. The transfers were flagged. The investigation is already underway. Jason's hand moved involuntarily toward his pocket, confirming Emily's suspicion. This is absurd, Vanessa declared, but her voice trembled slightly. Jason, she's manipulating you. Don't listen to her. How long have you two been planning this? Emily asked, looking between them. Was I always the target, or did you choose me after meeting Jason? Stop talking, Jason snapped. The baby is a nice touch, Emily continued, gesturing toward Vanessa's belly. Though you might want to secure that prosthetic better. It shifted when you reached for the glass earlier. Vanessa's hand flew protectively to her stomach, her eyes wide. You have no idea what you're talking about, she hissed. I think I do, Emily replied calmly. This isn't your first performance, is it? Seattle, Miami, Boston, you've done this before. Vanessa's composed facade crumbled entirely. She turned to Jason, panic evident in her expression. We need to leave, now. Jason hesitated, looking between the documents on the table and his partner in crime. The papers, he began. Forget the papers, Vanessa snapped. She knows. We need to go. Jason seemed torn, unwilling to abandon the scheme. They'd clearly spent money planning this. But the transfers, we need her signatures to access. Jason, Vanessa cut him off sharply. She said the FBI is involved. The mention of federal law enforcement finally seemed to penetrate Jason's hesitation. He grabbed his phone from the table, quickly scrolling through messages, his face growing paler by the second. How did you know? He demanded, looking up at Emily with a mixture of anger and fear. You just got back. There's no way. You couldn't know about the accounts. You underestimated me, Emily said simply, and you underestimated the people who care about me. Jason's expression hardened. The documents, Emily. Sign them and we'll leave you alone. One signature, and this all goes away. It's too late for that, Emily replied. As I said, the investigation is already underway. She's lying, Vanessa insisted, though far less convincingly than before. The authorities would be here if what she's saying was true. As if on cue, headlights swept across the front windows as a vehicle pulled into the driveway. Vanessa rushed to the window, pushing aside the curtain. It's too early, she whispered, her voice filled with dread. They weren't supposed to be here until midnight. Jason joined her at the window, the last of the color draining from his face. Who was coming at midnight? Emily asked, though she already suspected the answer. Movers for my remaining belongings, or maybe someone to help with those offshore accounts. Neither Jason nor Vanessa answered, transfixed by whatever they were seeing outside. It's over, Emily said quietly. Whatever you were planning, it's done. Jason turned to her, desperation replacing his earlier confidence. Emily, listen to me. You don't understand what's happening. We can work this out. Just sign the papers, and I'll explain everything. I think you've explained quite enough already, Emily replied coolly. A firm knock sounded at the front door, making all three of them jump. Vanessa backed away from the window, eyes scanning the room. The back door, she whispered urgently to Jason. We can still get out. But Jason seemed frozen in place, reality finally crashing down around him. They'll have the house surrounded, he said hollowly. Another knock, louder this time, followed by a firm voice. FBI, open the door. The commanding voice left no room for misinterpretation. FBI, open the door now. Jason and Vanessa remained frozen, panic etched across their faces. Emily moved toward the front door, but Jason suddenly lunged forward, grabbing her arm. Don't, he hissed. We can still fix this. Emily wrenched her arm free. It's over, Jason. Before anyone could react further, the front door burst open. 4 agents in FBI windbreakers swarmed into the foyer, weapons drawn. FBI, hands where we can see them, shouted the lead agent, a tall woman with short dark hair and intense focus. Jason raised his hand slowly, his face ashen. Beside him, Vanessa did the same, though her eyes darted frantically around the room, still searching for an escape. Emily Grant? The agent asked firmly. The female agent stepped forward, quickly scanning the room. That's me, Emily confirmed, stepping forward with her hands visible. Agent Cassandra Kim, FBI, Financial Crimes Division, the woman said, holstering her weapon as other agents moved in to secure Jason and Vanessa. Are you all right, Mrs. Grant? I'm fine, Emily assured her, though fine felt like the most dishonest word she'd said all night. Her body was standing still, but inside, her world was still crashing in slow motion. Agent Kim nodded, then turned her attention to the other 2 people in the room. Jason Grant and Elizabeth Kaplan, you're under arrest for wire fraud, identity theft, conspiracy to commit financial crimes, and attempted theft from a charitable foundation. As the agents began to handcuff Jason, he struggled briefly. This is a misunderstanding, he insisted, trying to twist away. Emily, tell them, this is just a divorce matter. His voice cracked, not with innocence but desperation. Agent Kim ignored his protests, continuing to recite his rights as another agent secured his wrists behind his back. The agent handling Vanessa had a more difficult time. As he attempted to cuff her, Vanessa's pregnant belly shifted dramatically to one side. "Careful with that," Vanessa snapped. "It's expensive." The agent paused, looking down at the prosthetic in confusion. "Ma'am, I need you to remove that device." Vanessa glared, but reached under her shirt with her still free hand, unfastening something. The entire pregnancy belly came away in one piece, revealing her slim frame underneath. The room seemed to inhale and freeze. She dropped the sophisticated prosthetic onto the floor with a dull thud. Emily stared at the discarded fake belly. Even knowing it wasn't real, seeing the physical evidence of the deception was jarring. The impact was visceral, a lie made visible. A performance reduced to plastic. A tangible symbol of the elaborate lies that had been constructed around her. Agent Kim approached Emily while the other agents continued processing Jason and Vanessa. "Mrs. Grant, I know this is a shock. We've been building this case for several weeks based on financial evidence. But we weren't expecting to find you here tonight. According to our information, you weren't due back for another 3 weeks." "I finished my work early," Emily explained, feeling oddly detached as she watched the scene unfold in her own living room. "I wanted to surprise my husband." The irony of that sentence settled like smoke in her lungs. A flicker of sympathy crossed Agent Kim's otherwise professional demeanor. "Quite a surprise all around, it seems. We'll need to ask you some questions, but they can wait until tomorrow if you prefer." "No," Emily said firmly. "I want to understand what's happening. What exactly were they doing?" Agent Kim gestured toward the dining table, where the documents still lay. "May I?" Emily nodded, and the agent flipped through the papers with gloved hands. "Based on our investigation, your husband and Miss Kaplan were attempting to gain control of your family's charitable foundation through fraudulent documentation," Agent Kim explained. "These papers contain hidden clauses that would have given them signing authority over the Camden Foundation accounts. They've already managed to transfer over $3 million to offshore accounts, but they needed your signature to access the bulk of the foundation's assets." Emily felt sick. "And the divorce? Was that just part of the scheme too?" "The divorce was real enough," Agent Kim confirmed, "but expedited and structured to their advantage. Had you signed these papers, you would have unknowingly surrendered not just your marital assets, but control of your family's foundation." From the foyer, Emily could hear Jason still protesting as agents led him toward the door. "Emily, don't listen to them. This is all a misunderstanding." Elizabeth Kaplan, in contrast, remained coldly silent, her calculating eyes fixed on Emily with unmistakable hatred. "How did you find them?" Emily asked Agent Kim. "Kelsey, my friend, she said you were already investigating?" "We received a report from compliance officers at Pacific Meridian Bank about suspicious transfers from the Camden Foundation accounts," Agent Kim explained. "The pattern matched previous cases involving Miss Kaplan. When we began surveillance, we discovered her connection to your husband." The agent picked up a document from the stack, pointing to a particular clause. "This is especially sophisticated work. The authorization for wire transfers is embedded within standard divorce language about asset division. Most people wouldn't catch it without careful legal review." Emily thought back to Jason's insistence that she sign immediately, without consulting her own attorney. The urgency made sickening sense now. "Were they working alone?" Emily asked, remembering Vanessa's frequent phone checks and that offhand comment about someone arriving at midnight. "No," Agent Kim confirmed. "We've identified at least 3 accomplices. 2 were apprehended approaching the back of your property just as we entered." She paused as her radio crackled. After listening briefly, she continued, "And the 3rd has just been apprehended 3 blocks away, attempting to flee in a rental van." "A van?" Emily repeated. "Based on previous cases, they likely plan to empty your home of valuables tonight," Agent Kim explained. "Art, jewelry, electronics, anything easily transported and sold." Emily glanced around her altered home, seeing it now with new eyes. The redecorating hadn't just been about Vanessa asserting dominance. It had been camouflage, a misdirection, a psychological operation designed to erase Emily and replace her with a fiction before the final extraction began. It had been preparation, a calculated setup for stripping the house of anything valuable. They weren't just playing house, Agent Kim continued. Elizabeth Kaplan and her accomplices target wealthy individuals with access to family money or investment accounts. They've stolen over $12 million in the last 3 years using variations of this exact scenario. And Jason? Emily asked, though she already suspected the answer. Was he a victim too? Agent Kim's expression hardened slightly. Initially, we believed Mr. Grant might have been manipulated, unaware of Miss Kaplan's true intentions. However, electronic evidence recovered from his office computer shows he was a willing participant. Once he understood the potential financial gain, he assisted actively with the fraud for at least 6 months. The confirmation of Jason's willing participation hit Emily like a physical blow. This wasn't just infidelity or a midlife crisis. It wasn't about love or even betrayal. It was conspiracy. It was calculated criminal behavior. I'd like to speak with your friend, Kelsey Thompson, tomorrow as well, Agent Kim added. Her alert to you and to our office likely prevented much greater losses. Emily nodded numbly. Of course. As the agents led Jason and Vanessa outside to the waiting vehicles, additional FBI personnel entered, beginning to document and search the house. Emily watched as Jason passed by her, his eyes hollow, wrists bound, his jaw clenched in something that looked less like regret and more like fury at being caught. One agent carried in a large evidence container. We'll need to process the scene, Agent Kim explained. It may take several hours. Is there somewhere you can stay tonight, Mrs. Grant? The irony wasn't lost on Emily. She was still being asked to leave her own home, just under very different circumstances than Jason and Vanessa had planned. I can call Kelsey, Emily said, or a hotel. Agent Kim nodded. Take whatever personal items you need for the night. We'll provide security for the property until our search is complete. As Emily moved to gather some essentials, she passed one of the agents carefully placing the prosthetic pregnancy belly into an evidence bag. The agent looked up as she approached. We found 3 more of these upstairs, he informed Agent Kim. Different sizes. Looks like they were documenting a progressive pregnancy. A performance in stages. A timeline of lies. Agent Kim nodded. Add them to the evidence log and check the medicine cabinet. There were likely fake prenatal vitamin bottles as well. Emily continued to the guest room where Vanessa had said her things had been moved. Opening the door, she found not her belongings, but more evidence of the elaborate scheme. The air smelled faintly of chemicals and dust, not lived in, not hers. The room contained several suitcases, fake identification documents spread across the bed, and what appeared to... Agent Kim, Emily called out. You might want to see this. The agent appeared in the doorway, surveying the room with practiced efficiency. This is exactly what we needed, she said immediately, radioing for the evidence team. Looks like they were preparing to flee the country. Emily picked up a passport from the bed. It contained Jason's photo, but a different name. Beside it lay plane tickets to the Cayman Islands, dated for the following week. They weren't just after the foundation money, were they? Emily asked quietly. They were going to take everything. That's their usual pattern, Agent Kim confirmed. The Camden Foundation was the primary target because of its liquid assets, but they wouldn't have stopped there. Based on what we've seen in previous cases, they likely would have emptied your accounts, maxed out credit cards in your name, and taken anything of value from the property before disappearing. Emily set down the fake passport, feeling suddenly exhausted. The adrenaline that had carried her through the confrontation was ebbing, leaving behind a bone-deep weariness. I think I'll call that hotel now, she said. Agent Kim nodded sympathetically. One of my agents can drive you wherever you need to go, and Mrs. Grant will need you to come in tomorrow for a formal statement. But I want you to know, you handled this situation remarkably well. Many people in your position would have panicked. Emily managed a tired smile. I think I'm saving the panic for later. As she was escorted from the house, past agents cataloging evidence, past the spot where Jason and Vanessa had stood, confidently announcing their future together just hours ago, Emily felt a strange sense of displacement. The home she had returned to tonight wasn't the one she had left 2 months ago, and the husband she had believed in for 8 years had never really existed at all. Agent Kim walked her to a waiting FBI vehicle. "We'll be in touch first thing tomorrow. Try to get some rest, Mrs. Grant." Emily nodded, clutching the small overnight bag one of the agents had helped her pack, with items deemed safe to remove from the scene. As the car pulled away from the curb, she looked back at her house, lights blazing from every window, FBI agents moving purposefully in and out. The familiar structure transformed into a crime scene. "Where to, ma'am?" the agent driving asked gently. Emily considered for a moment. Not the Four Seasons that Jason had so thoughtfully researched. Not anywhere he had. "The Peninsula Hotel, please," Emily said finally, "on North Michigan Avenue." As they drove away from the neighborhood, Emily's phone rang. "Kelsey, are you okay? Did they arrive?" "Yes," Emily confirmed, her voice steadier than she expected. "They arrested Jason and Elizabeth. I'm headed to a hotel for the night while they process the house." "Oh, thank God," Kelsey breathed. "I've been so worried. Do you want me to meet you somewhere? You shouldn't be alone tonight." The simple offer of friendship brought the first tears of the evening to Emily's eyes. "Yes," she said softly. "I'd like that very much." The Peninsula Hotel suite offered a stark contrast to the chaos Emily had left behind. Floor-to-ceiling windows showcased Chicago's glittering skyline, the city lights reflecting off Lake Michigan in the distance. The elegant room, with its neutral palette and understated luxury, felt like a sanctuary after the emotional maelstrom of the evening. Emily sat on the edge of the king-sized bed, still in her travel clothes, as Kelsey poured them each a glass of wine from the room service delivery. "The FBI agent seemed thorough," Kelsey said, handing Emily a glass. "Agent Kim," Emily nodded, taking a grateful sip. "Cassandra Kim, Financial Crimes Division. She said they'd been building the case for weeks. After I flagged those transfers, things moved quickly," Kelsey explained, settling into an armchair across from her. "Pacific Meridian has sophisticated monitoring systems for foundation accounts. Jason must have known that, but he still tried to move the money." "He always was overconfident," Emily murmured. She stared into her wine glass, watching the deep red liquid catch the light. "I keep trying to understand when it started. When did my husband become someone capable of this?" Kelsey's expression softened with sympathy. "I don't think it's that simple, Emily. Agent Kim explained some of it to me when I first reported the suspicious activity. Elizabeth Kaplan is extremely skilled at what she does. She identifies potential marks, studies them for weaknesses, and exploits those vulnerabilities. But still," Emily insisted, "to go from being unfaithful to committing federal financial crimes? That's a significant leap." "Maybe," Kelsey acknowledged, "or maybe one moral compromise made the next one easier." She hesitated before continuing. "Emily, there's something else you should know. The investigation revealed that Jason had been accessing your personal accounts and the foundation systems for nearly 2 years, long before Elizabeth appeared." Emily felt a fresh wave of betrayal wash over her. 2 years? That's before I even started planning the European tour." Kelsey nodded grimly. "The FBI believes he may have been laying groundwork, looking for opportunities. When the foundation received that major endowment last year—" "The Sutherland donation," Emily said, remembering the elderly collector who had left $12 million to the Camden Foundation upon his death. "Jason organized the investment strategy for those funds." "Exactly," Kelsey confirmed. "That influx of capital created the opportunity they needed, but they still required your signature for the major transfers." Emily took another sip of wine, trying to process this latest revelation. "So the European assignment, the one Jason encouraged me to take, was that part of the plan all along?" "It looks that way," Kelsey replied gently. "Agent Kim said they found emails between Jason and Elizabeth, discussing the perfect window while you were overseas." The pieces continued falling into place in Emily's mind. "And let me guess, the timing of my return was supposed to coincide with the completion of their scheme." Kelsey nodded. "Based on what the FBI has found so far, they plan to have all the signatures and transfers complete by next week. You weren't supposed to be back until the following week, by which time they would have been gone, along with most of your assets and a significant portion of the foundation's endowment." Emily set down her wine glass, suddenly feeling ill. "All those calls from Europe, Jason always sounded so loving, so interested in my work. Was any of it real?" Kelsey moved to sit beside Emily on the bed, placing a comforting hand on her shoulder. I can't answer that, Emily, but I do know this. What happened isn't a reflection on you. You trusted your husband because that's what people do in marriages. You didn't fail some test of perception. A knock at the door interrupted them. Kelsey rose to answer it, returning a moment later with Agent Kim. I apologize for the late intrusion, the FBI agent said, remaining standing despite Emily's gesture toward a chair. But we've uncovered some information. I thought you should know tonight, rather than waiting until morning. Emily straightened, bracing herself for more revelations. What is it? The real Eliza Carlisle, Agent Kim began, is a graduate student in Boston. She reported her identity stolen 8 months ago. Elizabeth Kaplan appears to have used her identity to establish credentials here in Chicago, including a fake interior design business. Interior design, Emily echoed quietly. Interior design, Emily repeated, thinking of the dramatic changes to her home. Agent Kim nodded. It provided a convenient cover for her presence in your house and the subsequent alterations. But that's not why I'm here, she added, hesitating briefly. Mrs. Grant, the evidence team found several hidden cameras installed throughout your home. Emily felt her skin crawl. Cameras? For what purpose? Based on preliminary forensics, they were installed approximately 7 months ago, Agent Kim explained. The footage was being stored on a secure cloud server we've now accessed. It appears they were monitoring your routines, your conversations, even your private financial discussions. Emily's breath caught. A creeping numbness spread through her limbs. 7 months, Emily echoed hollowly, while I was still living there, before I left for Europe. Agent Kim nodded grimly. We believe Jason installed them at Elizabeth's direction, as part of their information gathering. The cameras provided them with intimate knowledge of your life, your schedule, your passwords, even financial details you may have discussed at home. Every memory she thought was hers alone, her working late in the office, talking to Kelsey over tea, video calls with donors, was now tainted. The violation felt profound, deeper even than the financial fraud or marital betrayal. This was the erasure of privacy, a desecration of trust in its most intimate form. The idea that her private moments had been surveilled, analyzed, and exploited by the man she had trusted most was almost too much to bear. There's more, Agent Kim continued. Among the evidence recovered was a detailed plan for what they termed Phase 3. Phase 1 appears to have been information gathering. Phase 2 was isolating you from your assets and obtaining the necessary signatures. Emily almost didn't want to ask. And Phase 3? Agent Kim's professional demeanor softened slightly. I tell you this not to frighten you further, but so you understand the seriousness of what you've escaped. Phase 3 involved opening lines of credit in your name, maxing out existing accounts, and... She paused, choosing her words carefully. Ensuring you would be in no position to challenge their actions once discovered. What does that mean exactly? Kelsey asked, when Emily remained silent. They had prepared documentation suggesting Mrs. Grant was suffering from mental health issues, Agent Kim explained. Fabricated medical records, emails to a non-existent therapist, allegedly from Mrs. Grant, expressing paranoid thoughts. Emily's mouth went dry. They weren't just planning to rob her. They were going to erase her. They were building a case to question her competency if she later challenged the transfers. Emily felt a chill, despite the warmth of the hotel room. They hadn't just planned to steal her money. They had planned to steal her identity, her credibility, her voice. They had prepared to destroy her credibility, her reputation, perhaps even her freedom. I know this is overwhelming, Agent Kim acknowledged, but I wanted you to have this information tonight because it underscores just how comprehensive their planning was. This wasn't a crime of opportunity or a relationship gone wrong. It was a meticulously orchestrated fraud scheme. And Jason? Emily asked, her voice barely audible. Agent Kim's expression confirmed the worst before she even spoke. The evidence indicates he was an enthusiastic participant, Mrs. Grant. In fact, some of the more aggressive elements of the plan appear to have originated with him, not Miss Kaplan. The revelation landed like a blow to the chest. Emily had been holding on to a faint hope. Perhaps Jason had been manipulated, coerced in some way. But the confirmation of his willing, even eager, participation extinguished that final flicker of hope. "What happens now?" Emily asked after a moment of heavy silence. "They'll remain in custody, pending arraignment," Agent Kim explained. "Given the evidence we've already secured and Miss Kaplan's prior activity, I anticipate substantial charges and significant bail, if granted at all. The U.S. Attorney's Office is already preparing the case." "Will I need to testify?" Emily asked eventually. "Yes," Agent Kim confirmed. "But we have substantial documentary evidence. Your testimony will strengthen the case, but it's not the entirety of it." After Agent Kim departed, with promises of further updates in the morning, Emily and Kelsey sat in silence for several minutes. The weight of these latest revelations settled between them. "I don't even know who he was," Emily finally said, her voice breaking. 8 years of marriage, and I never really knew him at all." Kelsey moved closer, wrapping an arm around Emily's shoulders. "Maybe no one did, Emily. Maybe the person you thought you married never existed." Emily leaned into her friend's embrace, finally allowing the tears she'd been holding back all evening. "How do you start over," she whispered, "when your entire life turns out to be built on lies?" "One day at a time," Kelsey answered simply. "And you don't do it alone." As Emily cried in her friend's arms, the Chicago skyline continued to glitter beyond the windows, indifferent to the human drama unfolding within the hotel room. Her life had been shattered tonight. But as the initial shock began to recede, Emily felt something unexpected stirring beneath the pain and betrayal. Resolve. A quiet, steely determination. Jason and Elizabeth had underestimated her. They had mistaken her trust for weakness, her dedication to her career for neglect of her marriage. They had calculated, schemed, and lied, believing her too distracted or naive to notice, but they had been wrong. 6 months later, the Anderson Gallery in downtown Chicago hummed with conversation and the gentle clinking of champagne glasses. Spotlights illuminated a series of powerful mixed-media pieces arranged throughout the modern space, each depicting fragmented houses, broken contracts, and shadowy figures in the background of seemingly perfect domestic scenes. At the center of the exhibition stood Emily Grant, greeting guests and discussing her curatorial vision. Gone was the shell-shocked woman from that April night. In her place stood someone stronger, more focused, carrying a quiet confidence that radiated from within. "The exhibition challenges our assumptions about security and trust," Emily explained to an art critic from the Tribune. "Each artist explores deception from a different angle: financial fraud, identity theft, intimate betrayal, while examining how we rebuild in the aftermath." "And the title?" the critic asked, gesturing to the stark lettering on the gallery wall. "Hidden in Plain Sight, The Art of Deception and Recovery." "It speaks to the dual nature of the exhibition," Emily replied. "Both the deception that often occurs right before our eyes and the recovery that must happen visibly, intentionally, to be complete." As the critic moved on to study a particularly haunting installation, Kelsey appeared at Emily's side, offering a fresh glass of sparkling water. "Full house," Kelsey observed. "The reviews are already coming in online. They're calling it revolutionary and cathartic." Emily smiled. "It's not just my vision. Every artist here has experienced some form of betrayal or fraud. That authenticity, it resonates." Kelsey leaned in slightly. "Speaking of which, Cassandra just arrived. She says she has news." Emily nodded, scanning the crowd until she spotted the FBI agent near the entrance, looking somewhat out of place in the artistic gathering, despite her tailored pantsuit. Emily excused herself and made her way through the crowd. "Agent Kim," she greeted warmly. "Please, Cassandra now." The agent replied with a smile. "I'm not here in an official capacity tonight. I wanted to see the exhibition and give you an update in person." They moved to a quieter corner of the gallery, where a bench offered respite from the floor's constant motion. "The plea agreements have been finalized," Cassandra informed her. "Jason accepted a deal, 15 years for wire fraud, conspiracy, and identity theft. He could be eligible for parole in 10. In exchange, he's providing testimony against Elizabeth and their other accomplices." Emily absorbed the information with a calm that would have been impossible 6 months earlier. "And Elizabeth?" she asked. "She's fighting it," Cassandra replied. "But with Jason's testimony and the mountain of evidence, the prosecutor is confident." She's looking at 20 to 25 years once all charges across jurisdictions are combined. Emily nodded, feeling no joy, but a certain sense of closure. And the foundation money? Almost all recovered, Cassandra confirmed. The offshore accounts have been frozen and the funds are being repatriated. The paperwork is slow, but the money is secure. That's what matters most, Emily said. Those funds were meant to provide arts education to underserved communities, not to finance Jason and Elizabeth's escape. There's something else, Cassandra added. We've identified 3 more victims from Elizabeth's previous scams. They weren't as fortunate as you. They lost nearly everything before the fraud was discovered. The prosecutor wondered if you'd be willing to speak with them, maybe help them through their recovery process. Your strength has been remarkable, Emily. Emily considered the request. 6 months ago, she might have wanted to put as much distance as possible between herself and anything related to the crime that had upended her life. But now, having channeled her experience into this exhibition, into something productive and healing, the idea of helping others felt right. I'd be happy to, she agreed. Maybe they'd be interested in contributing to the next phase of this exhibition too. We're expanding to include workshops on recovery and rebuilding. Cassandra smiled, impressed. I'll let them know. As the agent stepped away to explore more of the gallery, Kelsey rejoined Emily. Everything okay? She asked. Emily nodded. The legal proceedings are wrapping up. Justice is being served. She glanced around the gallery, at the powerful artwork, the engaged guests, the quiet energy of a room filled with purpose. But this feels more important somehow. Turning pain into purpose, Kelsey observed. Exactly, Emily agreed. Jason and Elizabeth tried to destroy my life, but they inadvertently gave me a new direction instead. Later that evening, as the final guests departed and the gallery staff began closing procedures, Emily stood alone before the final piece in the exhibition, a mixed media work she had created herself. The central image showed a house split in 2, one side pristine and perfect, the other revealing hidden cameras, document shredders, and false bottoms in drawers. Layered throughout were fragments of the fraudulent documents Jason and Elizabeth had once prepared, now rendered harmless as art materials. The FBI had permitted their inclusion under strict archival handling. Emily reached out and lightly touched the edge of the frame. This was her story now. Exposed, processed, reclaimed, no longer hidden in plain sight. She had been permitted to use redacted versions of the documents for the project after the evidence had been processed. At the bottom of the piece, barely visible unless one looked closely, was a small inscription. The truth will out. A quiet promise. A permanent scar. Emily gathered her things, preparing to leave. Her renovated loft, the space she now called home, awaited her. A space entirely her own, decorated with items she had chosen herself. Secured with a state-of-the-art system Cassandra had recommended. No shared closets, no ghosts in the walls, no one else's fingerprints but her own. Her phone chimed, a message from a number she didn't recognize. Mrs. Grant, this is Claire from Seattle. Agent Kim gave me your contact information. I was one of Elizabeth Kaplan's victims 3 years ago. I saw the online coverage of your exhibition. If your offer to connect with other survivors is genuine, I would be grateful. Some days I still feel like I'm drowning in the aftermath. Emily read the message twice, then composed her reply. Claire, thank you for reaching out. The offer is absolutely genuine. The drowning feeling does subside, I promise. Let's meet next week. In the meantime, please know you're not alone in this journey. After sending the message, Emily tucked away her phone and took one last look around the gallery. 6 months ago, she had returned home to find her life shattered by betrayal and deception. Tonight, she was leaving a space she had filled with meaning and connection. It wasn't the life she had planned, but maybe, just maybe, it was the life she was meant to build. As she stepped out into the cool Chicago evening, Emily Grant realized it might be something better. A life built not on blind trust, but on clear-eyed purpose, and the authentic strength that comes only through surviving the unimaginable. Dear friend, sometimes the people closest to us hide the darkest secrets. And sometimes, the most unimaginable betrayal comes from the hand you once held with the most trust. Emily Grant's journey, from devastation to quiet power, reminds us of something deeply human. that while we can't always choose what breaks us, we can choose what we become after. Life doesn't always give us closure. Often, it hands us chaos and says, now build something better. Like the Stoics taught, we may not control what happens, but we always control how we respond. Emily didn't erase her pain, she turned it into purpose. She didn't just survive. She created something stronger in its place. A life built on clear-eyed truth, not blind trust. So I want to ask you, have you ever discovered someone in your life wasn't who they claimed to be? And if you have, how did you rebuild yourself after? How did you learn to trust again? Tell me your story in the comments. I'm not just curious, I'm listening. And if this story moved you even a little, please like the video, share it with someone who may need to hear it tonight, and subscribe to the channel for more real-life stories of deception, justice, and the strength we often forget we carry. Until we're forced to remember, your past may leave scars, but your courage, that shapes everything that comes next.